Welcome to Your City Connections, where you get to meet entertaining and informative guests. Guests such as an artist with a brush or with a camera, and a guest with a violin. City Connections, providing insightful interviews with favorite son Lieutenant Governor Todd Lamb, to city commissioners, the mayor, interviews with a rodeo queen, to beauty queen, and even an NBA player. Now, join Steve Kime as he discusses another engaging topic on City Connections.
Hello again and welcome to City Connections. I'm Steve Kime, and as you know, each week, and I say this over and over, it's my privilege to find individuals with a connection to Enid or individuals within Enid that we want to share their story. And before we share that story, I'd like to share with you, I was looking at the dictionary. You know, I read exciting things, and I was in the dictionary the other day, and I looked up the word icon. And according to Webster's dictionary, it says icon is a small picture on a computer screen that represents a program or function. Also, it's a person who is very successful and admired. And then finally, according to Webster's dictionary, an icon is a widely known symbol. Well, I think my two special guests today, they fit into that icon status because they are widely known symbols and from the Enid community. And they're in the ETN studio today. And to my immediate left, Jay Curtis, Huckleberry.
Hey,
Jay Curtis,
Steve.
thank you for being here.
My
Alan
pleasure.
Clepper, long reach for Clepper in the morning. As you know, these two individuals, you probably wake up to these guys every day. Welcome, gentlemen, to City Connections. Appreciate you being here. And
My pleasure.
Hopefully that you've signed off on all the disclaimer forms that this is City of Enid TV and nothing will be held against me that you say, okay?
Well, I'm not going to touch anything.
That was done. We had the lawyer look it over.
And this is HDT. Oh, okay, your attorneys have looked at it. Just a reminder that this is high definition television and you must be on your best behavior.
And we apologize to the audience as well.
We do have a face for radio.
Yeah.
No doubt about that.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you joining us on City Connections this week. And one of the reasons I was visiting with Alan Clepper a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about celebrating 30 years in broadcasting. And the three of us have one connector, and that would be in my early days, I was in broadcasting. So that's kind of the three things that we were connected with. But then I've also learned that Jay Curtis had celebrated 30 plus years in broadcasting. So I thought, we got to get these two 30 plus year icons together and talk about their role in the Enid community and learn a little bit more about them. Jay Curtis, to you right off the bat, how in the world did you get involved in broadcasting? In 20 words or less.
That's impossible. If you wanted that, you shouldn't have asked me a question. Oddly enough, I'd never been interested in radio or broadcasting. My degree is in political science.
Okay.
It was a matter of timing. Graduated, got out of college 1984 on the semester. And of course, that was still just after the big oil bust.
Right.
And there was not much going on. In fact, it took about 6 months to find a job here in Enid. And the first job that I had in radio, Steve, was as a salesperson going out and trying to sell radio advertising to local businesses.
So you were so successful in selling, they stuck you on the air.
Well, now, in my defense, a couple of things.
I've had that say to me. So.
That's true. In my defense, a couple of things. As I mentioned, it was 1984, and the economy was not doing well here, and attitudes were not great. It was not the best time to be trying to sell radio advertising or anything else. But secondly, you are correct in that as far as a salesperson, I was not good. I was not suited for the job. I was young, coming straight out of college, was not prepared to do what needed to be done to be successful at that, and fortunately had the opportunity to transition and to start working back then what was known as working on the board. You worked behind producing the shows. It was much more required on the human element back then, even for network shows. The stations were not computer run. and then a little bit on the air, and just simply never stopped.
Very good. We'll talk a little bit later on in our interview about the advances in technology. I'm just a tad bit, 2 or 3 weeks older than these two gentlemen to my left. And when I was in broadcasting, there was not a communications department. Oklahoma State didn't even have a radio TV department at the time. And so you had to go to a private broadcasting school, which I did way back in the early 70s. And it was called Elkins Institute, and that was something even Rush Limbaugh went to Elkins. And that's how we got introduced to broadcasting for me. But Alan, my question to you is, on Wednesday mornings when we talk city government news on your morning show, we will kind of swap stories about influences. And I remember as a kid in high school, I would go out in my car in Perry, Oklahoma, turn on that old AM radio. It wasn't FM in my '60 Chevy. Yeah. And I would listen to WLS out of Chicago, WNOE in New Orleans, and I think it was WOAI in San Antonio. And I'd listen to these guys and I'd go, wow, what a voice, what a power, and I loved the music. My question to you, for you to get in broadcasting, were there events like that impacted you to say, hey, broadcasting's for me?
Well, it's kind of the same story as Jay Curtis. I got into broadcasting by mistake at Oklahoma State. I was an architecture major and did that for 3 years and decided.
I see that connection there.
You know, and when you're a junior in college and you've got a nice solid 1.5 grade average, you're trying to find the easiest thing you could. And I literally went back to the dorms, opened up the syllabus, and chose broadcasting. So I ended up with a degree in radio, television, and film.
Tell us that grade point again.
No, it wasn't really one. It was more like.
That's a little higher than it was.
It was more like 1.8, but it's a lot closer than you think. But I think by osmosis, the old AM radio, the top 40 AM radio, and you pick the town, whether it's WLS in Chicago, and I would listen to them at night too. A lot of people did growing up in this part of the world, but I listened to the Oklahoma City stations, and some of those guys are still on the air right now as we speak that I listen to. So I think if there's homework that was done, that was it, listening to the radio. And I think when you get into it, you emulate your favorite broadcasters, and away you go. So.
My special guest on City Connections today is very familiar icons, as I call them, Alan Clepper of Clepper in the Morning on KOFM and also KGWA. Then, of course, Jay Curtis Huckleberry. You can hear Jay Curtis on KGWA. And the evening news. When you're driving home, you can hear Jay Curtis share the news. Now, Jay Curtis, you shared your story about your connection to Enid. Alan, let me ask you, you weren't born and raised in Enid. You were north and northwest here of the community. How did you end up here in Garfield County, Enid?
I was running from the law. No, it's not that far from the truth. Actually, I got that degree from OSU and was setting my sights on points farther to the north, whether it was, I don't know, Colorado, probably, the mountains, someplace pretty.
Yeah.
And couldn't get a job. And after about a month living with my parents, headed back to Stillwater to get that last load of stuff. I stopped in Enid because the late, great Bert Chambers, some people may remember that name, had been at KGWA and had spoken to a college class. And he said, don't ever underestimate the power of small market radio and television and broadcasting. So I thought, okay, I'll give it a shot. Stopped into Enid and went right straight to Bert, and he said, no, I don't have a job for you. But the guys down the street did, and that's what started that. So that's how I ended up in Enid. A couple of months later, met a girl, we got married, and such is the history of that.
30 plus years later, here we are.
Still married to that same girl, by the way. So
That's right.
Well, congratulations. And again, one of our key themes today is highlighting their 30 plus years in broadcasting, but also their 30 plus year connection to Enid, Oklahoma, and the impact that they have here in the community. Jay Curtis, 30 plus years, one station here in Enid. How in the world? Longevity. How did that happen? Because some of the guys that I started in broadcasting with 100 years ago, they worked 3 years, moved to another station, more money, bigger title. 3 years later, they moved, and you just kept moving. In your case, 30 plus years in one spot.
A number of factors. I've never really been interested in leaving Enid on a permanent basis, living someplace else. It has to do with the fact that my family's here as well. Okay. My parents are still here. I have other family here. I really do like it. Secondly, it is impossible to underestimate how much I hate moving. And also, like many of us, I'm rather resistant to change in any way. I've had the fortune to work for two great owners. When I first started, the late Alan Page, who owned the radio stations when both Alan and I started there, and since then Kyle Williams. And there's been a variety of things that I've done at the radio station, so that's kind of kept it fresh. But other than that, I enjoy what I do, and there's never been anything to prompt me to go ahead and seek change, including wanting to move to a larger market, even if that was possible, or if I was to be pursued. But no, and I love what I do.
Very good. This may sound like a broken record. You kind of like that pun there?
I get it.
This sound like a broken record? Yeah, okay. Yeah, skipping along. Let's go to the flip side of things if we could. Oh man, were we in trouble. Ladies and gentlemen, really it is significant, about 30 plus years in one particular role, because I think in the early days and even today, one of the trends, if you will notice, you'll have your favorite weatherman or news or sports person, then all of a sudden they're gone on TV or they're gone on radio. There is such a push and call to just keep moving, doing more. And so it is so significant, and that's why I wanted Alan and Jay Curtis on City Connections today to talk about their 30 plus year commitment to the Enid community, if you will. Alan, let's go back to some of the highlights in your career. Maybe they were interviews or people you met, but when you think over 30 years, what would be considered highlights? And there's probably one every week, but could you narrow it down to one or two?
I mean, I'll have to put it in segments. Sure. Because there's the Air Force part. There's the Vance Air Force Base. Had the opportunity to be an honorary commander out there, which was fantastic. Years ago when the Thunderbirds, who were coming back, by the way, got to ride in an F-16 on the Thunderbird flight, which was crazy.
How'd that go?
Yeah, I puked. Got to ride, can I say that?
I think you just did.
Yeah.
On the flip side.
got to ride in a T-38 with Colonel Mack as one of the honorary commanders, and then got to ride in the B-20, was it B-25? Out at Woodring. It was an old World War II bomber.
Or B-24.
Something. And then
the Liberator.
And then the bi-wing planes. We flew in the bi-wing planes years ago. There's that faction. There's the artists throughout the years in the country music scene. Martina McBride, Big and Rich, Aaron Tippin, Reba.
And excuse me, Alan, I think when people think of disc jockeys or broadcasters, especially in the radio world, when they think about, oh, what a job that I could just be sitting across from Reba and talking to her. When you've mentioned off several of these names, of these people that you've interviewed, was there someone that just wowed you, said, boy, they surprised me. I didn't expect that from them. Oh. They were nicer than I thought, or they were more cordial and accommodating. Was there somebody that fits that category?
I think Aaron Tippin's the one.
Okay.
Aaron Tippin remembered me from a phone interview. I met him face to face, and I'd interviewed him about 2 or 3 years before that. We saw him at a concert gathering, and he remembered me. And how in the world he remembered me? Salt of the earth type of person. So, but there are others that are like that too. It's hard to answer that question in 30 minutes, let alone, I mean, I could sit here for a day and point out things. But truly, and I know this is almost going to sound cliche, but the true highlight of it all has been the people here locally. When you meet that person that comes up and says, hey, we were listening to your weather coverage, or we heard what you said, and we want you to know that what you did make a difference.
Or we heard about your bland color
exactly,
socks.
By the way,
the gray
these socks do not match my shirt. Yeah. And I'm proud of that. That's an ongoing
I'm Alan's mentor in the wardrobe department.
Yeah. So
you're growing as well. Jay Curtis, my next question to you. I think I was in radio probably 3 days. And I get a call at the radio station late one night. This is down in McAllister. It was an AM/FM station in McAllister. And it was Ed Edmondson. He was running for governor. I pick up the phone, really 3 days on the job. I can barely remember the call letters. And this gentleman says, can I come to your radio station for an interview? And, you know, I'm queuing up records and trying to keep things going, but I just remember, wow, here, this is a candidate for governor of the state of Oklahoma. Ed Edmondson wants to talk to me. How about, was there any celebrity types or political figures that come to mind? Just one that comes to mind that you had interviewed that said, yeah.
It was not a full interview, but did have an opportunity to be in the presence when George H.W. Bush, the president, visited Enid. He was president at the time, and he spoke at Convention Hall and did some other stuff and got to be part of the little press corps down there, got to ask a question, not a full interview. But then, since then, so many of the other politicians that have been generous, all of our United States congressmen, United States senators, a number of governors, we've all had an opportunity to speak with, as well as others, a lot more often than, say, celebrities from entertainment or something else. But I always find it interesting and informative. And yeah, it's pretty cool when they call you by your name. I mean, even if it's just during the interview, obviously they're quite savvy. They're politicians, so they refer to you by name. And you're sitting there going, that's kind of cool. Senators call me by my name. But yeah, I've enjoyed and had the opportunity to do that dozens of times.
Well, gentlemen, we need to take a short break, but when we come back, I'd like to talk a little bit, get your input on where you think radio broadcasting is going. There's been such technological advances. And also, I'd like to give you an opportunity to offer some word of encouragement or direction to a young person that's watching the show. They may be watching this live on ETN or even on YouTube later on, and they may hear something directly from you that'll get them off the fence to go this way or to run from broadcasting, all right? Either way. But thank you for staying with us on City Connections. We'll have more with our special icon, our special guest, right after this. Thank you for staying with us on City Connections. My special guest today, J. Curtis Huckleberry and also Alan Clepper. As you know, I've called them our local icons, our local celebrities, because often for 30 plus years, you wake up in the morning or you drive home in the afternoon listening to the radio to catch the news. Chances are it's one of these individuals that you're getting the news and weather from. And we're highlighting their 30 plus years, not necessarily in just radio and broadcasting, but again, they are a part of this fabric of the Enid community, and we want to learn more about them, and I appreciate them being with me on City Connections today. Well, again, I remember the days of taking an old 45, queuing it up while the news was on, and maybe I'd have an album, 33, I'd queue up, because I didn't have the 45 of a particular song, but it was on an album, so I could play that. But that goes way back to the 1970, something like that. But today, boy, I don't see you guys queuing up records. I don't see you guys with cart decks or anything. Boy, how far, Alan, we'll start with you. How far is technology from your early days?
I started right there with you. I mean, I was playing the record players and what we called the cart tapes, which were actually, I don't know, 8-track tapes, sort of.
With 60 seconds in length?
Yeah, with 60 seconds. I think the biggest change, and everybody knows the technology, it's MP3s, it's WAV files. It's the same thing you've got in your pocket on your smartphone, just done to a bigger studio quality of format, but that's what we use. I think what the technology has allowed us to do is not spend time queuing up that record or playing that tape, but now we have time to talk to our guests more, to talk to our listeners more on the telephone, where in years past we'd simply go, look, I got to go, I don't have time for this.
Right.
So I think it's almost like the same thing that Facebook's done with some social media. We've been able to maybe expand our personality more than before because of that.
I remember one time, Jay Curtis, I'll come to you in a second. I remember Jay Curtis and I had a conversation, and it was before his newscast, 5 o'clock newscast, and there was a special city commission meeting. And after that meeting, I was going to send a press release out to all the media outlets here in Enid. But you gave me your phone number and said, Steve, I'd like to get this on the 5 o'clock news. Text me the outcome of this meeting or that decision. And I remember doing that. That really places how far technology is. In the old days, you'd find out it the next day, or I'd have to call you on the phone and you would have to take time, but here you are able to read that information off your phone. What else has changed in your world?
Well, I think it is competing for the listener. There are so many things to be offered out there. It's really interesting currently on how people consume radio, which is one of the challenges for us. You know, like Steve, when do you listen to the radio? I would assume, like many people, often when you're in the car.
Yep.
That is still primary radio.
I'm still waiting for you to play my request that I called in the other day. So.
You know, keep waiting. You know, going. I'm sorry, we played it where you weren't listening.
We played it in 1983.
That's right. We've played that, but it really is as opposed to in television, you refer to it as competing for eyeballs, trying to get your share of the audience. It's just simply trying to go ahead and provide a product that will interest people and make sure that we are capable of delivering it in a way that they want it delivered. So tying in with the advance in technology and what the future looks like, it's tying in with being available on smartphones, making sure that radio and certainly our radio stations are available in automobiles. That's being done at the industry level, where radio as an industry is talking and continuing to work with, say, automobile manufacturers to make sure that radio tuners are still part of a car's entertainment setup, as well as trying to understand all of the other things that we need to do, the Facebook, the Twitter presence, and the rest to stay connected to our listeners and make them feel like they are part of what we're doing. So that's where, as far as circling back to how the technology has really changed, as far as I can't remember what else you wanted to.
Nothing. I'm through with you. I'm ready to move on.
Yeah, I would be too. Going,
By the way,
it really is.
That's the line that he gave me one morning at KGWA. He goes, "Steve, I got to move on. Let's go." But if any individual that had been in broadcasting for way back from the 40, 50, 60, 70s on up, there's something about being on the air, hearing that teletype machine running in the background, and then the bells going off when there was something important. And that's how far I measure technology, from relying on that old AP machine, cranking out the news or weather or tornado notices, and compare it to everything on our iPhone.
Just set the alerts on your phone. It's the same thing. If
Yeah.
you set the alerts on those apps to audible alerts, it's real similar to that. So.
And Alan makes fun of the fact that I have a rotary dial cell
weird.
phone.
It's weird.
Anyway, I'll catch up
One
with
of the
these.
few.
Well, we wore our welcome out, so we're going to keep moving. Here on City Connections, again, one of the key things that I appreciate about Jay Curtis and Alan's involvement in the community is they provide the City of Enid an opportunity that each week we get to talk about city government news. We talk about the City Commission. We talk about tree limb debris pickup. We talk about a variety of things. And so we have an avenue through the radio media to talk with these gentlemen each week and really share what's going on in the City of Enid government, and I appreciate that. As we close our show out and start with you, Jay Curtis, you have a young person that's watching this interview, and they're going, "Wow, that's kind of impressive. I'm interested in broadcasting." What words of encouragement would you offer that person that is watching this interview, and they may need the right bit of inspiration? What would you say?
Well, I would just encourage you that if you are interested, to continue to pursue it. A lot of it can be done in the form of get any type of experience that you can possibly get towards that goal. It would include even internships or stopping by the radio stations and asking about it. We've had a number of young people that have either worked for us part-time, been interns, or simply have just come in to hang around the radio stations a little bit to find out if that is something that they are truly interested in. It is unfortunate, Alan might be able to address this a little bit, there are just not as many opportunities or as many jobs in radio, again circling back to that advance in technology. As much manpower is not needed, but there are still opportunities there. And, you know, they can range from being interested in music to talk radio or some of the others. Continue to concentrate on school. And no matter what you do, whether it's in broadcasting or anything else, when you do get that opportunity, remember just a couple of important things. Be on time, come ready to work, be dependable, and you'll be ahead of about 90% of the other people that would be interested in doing that job.
I appreciate you saying that, because very few people that I remember in the stations that I work with, they were never late. They were always early. And that's the thing about radio. 8 o'clock means 8 o'clock.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, you got to be on time. Alan, for that young person considering radio, what's your words of encouragement for them?
I think that you probably experience radio already on social media and you don't realize it. And if you can think of the outreach that you've had, maybe if you have a YouTube channel or a Facebook page or a Twitter account or an Instagram, whatever it is, and you're that person that loves putting out those pictures and loves putting out those thoughts, you've always got an opinion and a take on something. The truth is you're already in broadcasting and you don't realize it. So my encouragement would be, if you're that person, come talk to us. Our advice is free. Otherwise, at some point, somebody's going to have to come along to be able to pick me up and carry me from studio to studio. 2 words of encouragement and advice. The late Dick Clark told Ryan Seacrest this. He said there's 2 elements to success. Number 1, treat everybody the same. That way, if you have a janitor or the top-selling Oscar winner in the studio at the same time, you've not offended either one of them by treating them the same. And number 2, the biggest rule of all, always be nice. Pretty simple, but it works.
Well said. Very good. Jay Curtis, thank you for being here today.
Steve, appreciate it.
Mr. Clepper in the morning.
Are we getting paid for this?
Absolutely.
Sweet.
I'll buy you a drink of water here in just a moment.
Awesome.
So,
I told you.
and I can get you a big drink of water. So, congratulations on 30 plus years in the Enid community, and congratulations for the impact that you've made. And I opened up the show talking about icons, but you really are, because people, they look or listen to that radio, and you guys are a big part of their lives. And that's the icon part about making a difference. So thank you for being here and making a difference on City Connections. And we'll do it again. We'll get an update. Maybe we'll do this every 5 years or something like that. Keep track of you. I didn't get a yes out of that, so we'll move on.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you for being with us on City Connections. I hope you enjoyed our opportunity to talk with Jay Curtis and also Alan today. And we look forward next week on a new City Connections to talk about that special individual that's making an impact here in the Enid community. Until next time, make it a great day.